It's just that it was a gift limited to a couple of people. It was a vision that was restricted to few organizations. Now that it has been turned into a field of scientific investigation, design thinking has become a skill, and that skill which can be imparted by one to another, and a skill through which you can create design thinking capabilities in other institutions, in other individuals. And this, to my mind, is a wonderful idea. And in a society where we come from and the times in which you and I are living, we have always been a resource constrained country. And now we are rattled by multi-pronged challenges from economy in the condition in which it is, from a community that is threatened by a very fatal pandemic, uh, to the industry that is trying to figure out mechanisms to stay in business and to stay relevant for next 5, 10 years. Design thinking applications are approaches to, that's my understanding, approaches of lateral thinking, ability to think out of the box and finding solutions, optimizing the resources that we have in hand. So I wish all the best to all the participants to this FDP, and I hope you have a great peer learning experience, and compliments Dr. Preeta for taking this on. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I just want to request you to just present a green certificate to our first speaker, Mr. Utkarsh.
So, Utkarshi, warm welcome to the session. And we're delighted to present this green certificate to you, which has come in lieu of the floral bouquets that were presented earlier. You will now have a geotag tree planted in your name in Sundarban National Park. So you receive an email and you can track the growth of your tree over a period of time. So, warm welcome to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Dr. Anand.
So I'd like to now invite.
Yeah.
So, I would like to now invite Mr. Utkarsh to start the session so that participant can be benefited.
Yeah. So let me start by presenting my screen and then I think I can't present my screen, so you have to let me.
Now you have permission, sir.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay. So before I start, thank you, Dr. Kavita, Dr. Preetham, Deepak Singh, for arranging all this all in topic like design thinking and additive manufacturing. So we can always talk in detail about what it is, but I like the way entire introduction is being structured, that how important it is for us as a in current scenario where everything is so interconnected and we are facing challenges which are larger than life. So thank you for setting up the pace of this entire session. And I welcome you all faculties from different parts of country. I see that people have joined from different states, people have joined from different location, uh, even if they have some concerns and with their day-to-day work. So thank you all who have joined. So let's start this session. Pritamji, are we good to start? Hello.
Pardon?
I'm asking, is my voice everything okay, and are we good to start?
Yeah, your voice is okay. You can start.
Perfect. Let's start then. Okay. So a lot has been already said by Pritamji about my introduction, so I'll quickly skip this for you all. And this is our first session. So we'll be covering what design thinking is in nutshell, and again in detail about how we can define it and why we need design thinking as in practice. And then quickly we can understand the principles and problem solving approach behind it. and then possibly we can end this particular session, the first session, with or if any questions you guys have or anyone has. So probably we can take those questions at the end. In between, if you have any questions, feel free to ping on the chat box, and we can take it those questions at the end. Okay, so let's start. So we all know what a problem is. We all are very well aware of how different situations, how different conditions can lead to a consensus of things which we call a problem. So let's start by defining a problem first. What is a problem? I mean, we generally say that, okay, this practice is problem solving practice. But to start with, we have to understand that what actually is a problem. I mean, what all can fall in a bucket of problem, what all can't be relatable to something known as problem definition. So a problem could be anything. It could be generally considered to be a task, a situation, or even a person to some extent, which is difficult to deal with due to complexity and inter-transparency and interdependencies. So in current era, anything which has interdependencies on several aspects, which has interrelatability to different touch points, and which is not that easy to solve, which is very complex, we can always say that is a problem. Okay, so in that way, we we can say that we have 3 pointers. It could be complexity, intertransparency, and interdependency. In everyday language or in a layman terms, a problem can be a question, proposed solution, a matter stated for examination, it could be anything, or a proof. So in each and every case, a problem is considered to be a task, a matter, which is difficult to solve or settle for. Okay, so it might not be necessary that once a problem is solved, it's end. I mean, we can always look for better beautification of anything. We can always look towards betterment of any solution. And that's how we can say that even if a problem is solved, there is always a case where we can go a level beyond and deep dive to solve that particular doubtful case or a complex task involve doubt and uncertainty and all those things. So when we understand that what problem is, the next thing that really comes to our mind is how to solve any problem. I mean, problem solving is one of the most uh, leveraged skill set in current industry. And this is across vertical, across horizontal. There is no one department you can say that, okay, marketing needs a better problem solving person than financial department, because the context and the depth of problem in each and every level is almost same. Supply chain will have same level of depth in problem as it will have an analytics team. So that's the case. So once we understand what problem is, now let's work towards understanding how we can solve any problem. Or to start with, what we can do when we have any problem. And by the way, the creature on right hand side of your screen is one of my favorite creature. We can call it by any name, but this is one creature which has evolved. So you'll see a lot of my friends on screen later on. So let's try and understand what we can do with any problem. Okay, so problem solving can be anything. Problem solving can be as simple as just putting a solution, a patch of code, and solving problem. It could be as complex as government dealing with something, vaccination production across country and distribution and supply chain maintenance across country. So there are different categories of problem, and similarly problem solving can also be categorized into different sections and bifurcations and subsections. So we as a human being, we have problem solving at core of human evolution. Since the Stone Age era, we have, thank you, we have this, we have,
ये हो गया
sorry,
उसको देना है हाँ इसमें डालो आप अपना ए डालो और ए डालो
is anyone asking a question or something?
I think if you're not speaking, you can kindly mute your mic. It will help the speaker.
Okay, I think someone has kept their mic on. No worries. So let's understand what we can do with a problem. And as I was talking, that since the Stone Age era, solving any problem is in our core depth of mind. It's in human evolution. We wanted something for mobility, we discovered wheel. We wanted something for light, we discovered fire. So all these are nothing, all inventions are nothing but problem solving in a very nutshell. So it is a method we use to understand what is happening in our environment, in our vicinity, and try and identify things we want to change, and then figure it out that what are those things that need to be done to create a desired outcome. So problem solving is nothing but a mission with an objective to solve something in the end. So we have to understand that what are the basic block structure behind every problem. Okay. So it could be a source of all new inventions. As I said, it not could be, actually it is source of all inventions, whether it may be social invention, cultural evolution, or something as economic change or economic evolution too. So in 2008, when the mega crisis happened, that was a time when the world started looking for something known as a safe sort of investment. That was a time when different risk agencies came into picture. That was a time when different audit agencies came into picture. So that, again, I'm not saying that audit agency or risk agencies were not there before that, but post that particular problem, people started to understand from a broader angle that what is in the end that they are solving for. And based on the cultural requirement, the social requirement, the economical requirement, or even the market requirement uh, of economics, we solve all these problems. And it is the basis of continuous improvement, communication, and learning. The more we learn, the more we evolve, and that's how we solve anything which is very structured, which is very step by step, block by block, and that's how we evolved. That's what when I started this particular session, that's what I meant when I said that problem solving is core of human evolution. So now let's understand why problem solving is so important to our daily life. I mean, what is it that we are talking? We are attending all these sessions, and I'm talking about such uh, issue. I mean, why this topic? So we have to understand that it is nothing but a process of observation. It is a process of observing what is going in your environment, identify things that could be changed or improved. So there is a very big, I would say, myth or biases that innovation is something creating something from scratch. No, it is not. Obviously, it is something when you create from scratch, it has more value. But in case if you are improving something, that also comes as a part of innovation. So diagnosing the current as the current stage situation is the way to factor and understand the forces behind it, to understand what are the current scenarios making this thing possible. And that's how the development approach or any alternative is designed to influence market, to change anything, to make sure that the decisions that we are taking or the alternatives that we are counting for are okay to take, are important to take, and to understand the observing impact of those decisions. We have monetization in 2018 or 2017, I'm not sure. I think it was 2018, but the impact of that is long lasting. So we have to understand that what all these decisions gonna do as an impact at the end of. So whatever problem solving techniques or decisions we take, we have to understand its impact on a larger scale. And that's how each step of problem solving is extremely essential, and it requires a definite skill set and methods that contribute to the overall effectiveness of influencing the change and determining the level of problem complexity that it can address. So we as a human, we learn how to speak, how to solve simple problems from very early age. As I spoke, I mean, learning to eat, making coordinated moves, or even communication. We started from ABCD, and then right now we are communicating in so many different languages, and that's how we evolve. And as a person goes through life, problem solving skills are redefined, matured, and then becomes more sophisticated. So when let's go back to some 20 or 30 years back, problem solving could be anything. We just wanted to play. So even getting a place to play was in a way solving that particular problem. But now it has been become more sophisticated. We are dealing with something, many major issues in large organizations, in institutions. Most of you have uh, experienced it, that teaching is one of the most difficult job on this earth. You have to make people understand a concept. You have to make people understand what different aspects are of any solution, of any process, of any concept, and then make them implement it. So again, this is a problem solving. So it is important for us as an individual or an organization, because it helps us, it enables us to exert the control over our environment. So with this, I move to next, which will talk about what Dr. Kavita pointed out in introductory session, that how complex the problems are. I mean, you have to understand that what we are dealing with in 2021 is not something as simple as what we dealt in 2010 or maybe 2000, early 2000, and all those things. So we live in a world, we live and work in a world which is full of interlocking systems. Okay, where many problems that we face as a human are dynamic, multifaceted, and inherently human. We have to understand that no matter that what problem you are solving, whether it's a business problem, it's a personal problem, it's a medical problem, or whatever problem you are solving, at the end of each and every problem, there is a human experience associated with it. You have to understand that for whom we are solving these problems. Okay, so think of some big questions being asked by business or by government, educational societies, or social organizations. How will we navigate the disruptive forces of the day? I mean, when COVID happened in 2019 and it stuck in India in 2020, early 2020, let me admit that none of us were capable enough at that point of time to make sure that our business operations run smoothly. The business continuity meetings were some 12-hour, 14-hour, 30-hour marathon that continues to happen because of all these things, because of the impact that COVID has brought with it. So that was a huge problem, and that was on a global level. So how will we grow and improve uh, and respond to all these rapid changes is something that we have to understand because of complexity of problems. So in this diagram, you can understand that whatever the diverse portion is, whatever this particular portion is, this talks about how we can, how we understand the choices and create the choices that we have. So this talks about that any problem solving comes with a technique where we have to create as many choices as possible. We have to see the diverse angle of problem solving, and that's how we can place we can understand the complexity integrity of any problems. And then the next stage is, once we move from this stage to this particular stage, the entire convergence stage is when we understand and make sure that whatever options we have, we select from that particular option. We have to find the most adaptive option to solve that particular problem. And that's how I introduce you all to a concept known as design thinking. That's how we can introduce ourselves to a problem solving approach that is design thinking. So for us, design thinking offers an approach or addressing all these big questions. There is nothing fancy in this definition. I won't tell you that what design thinking is from something who has who has done a PhD on the subject. I will I will help you understand this in a layman terms, in as simplest terms as possible. Okay, so to start with, there is no single definition of design thinking. Let me assure you that if you meet 10 different person in this world who practice design thinking, you will get at least 10 different sort of definitions of this concept. This is nothing but a problem solving concept, and you will have to understand, sorry, my bad, you have to understand that all these concepts or these problem solving approach is different from different perspective. Okay, so there is no single definition of design thinking. It might be an idea for someone, it might be a strategy for someone like me, or it might be just a method for someone to the way they see and perceive the world. Okay, the way they understand things, it might be as simple as that. So it's grown beyond the confines of any individual person. No one claims that uh, I know design thinking completely. Not any individual person, no one organization or website, or I would say anyone, no one book can claim that they understand and depict and apply uh, and achieve what is desired from design thinking, and that's the only way. Okay, so as it matured, the history deepens and it got evolved. So for IDEO is one of the I hope you understand what IDEO is. So IDEO is one of the leading design agency in world which has given this concept of design thinking. And so for IDEO, design thinking is nothing but a way to solve problems through creativity. That's how they defined design thinking, that any problem that can be solved through creativity is let's call it a design thinking problem. Certainly, it's not the fail-safe approach. It's not the only approach. So based on the impact that we see, based on our own experiences, our own learnings, we can define and then redefine design thinking. So I'm giving you the first bookish definition of it. So it, as per Tim Brown, who is the CEO of IDEO and executive chair of IDEO, he defined design thinking as a human-centered approach to innovation that draws from designers' toolkit to integrate the need of people, possibilities of technology to solve any business success. So let's understand this definition from a broader angle. So we have something called designers' toolkit. Then we have something called integrate the needs of people. Then we have something called possibilities of technology and business success. So all these 4 pointers are equally important. So let's take one by one. The first one is needs. What needs are? Need, we'll talk in detail what need is, but no problem. None, I mean, we can't say that anything that we are solving is because of need. So that's how a need is there, a word is there, which expands the horizon from having want and going to need. So all those who are from marketing can understand the difference between want and need, and possibly understand the technical intervention that is required. So right now, if you say that anything can be done without technical intervention, sorry, I don't agree. You have to make sure that you are aligning, because technology is the future no matter, and that's the biggest I mean, I would say bottleneck, or again a bias that I see in most of people who are who are graduating from different business schools, that technology is not something they can learn because they are masters in administration. No, you have to understand what technology is and how it works, and that's how you can define the requirement for any business. So collectively, was the way how design thinking was defined by IDEO. And then let's go to a different definition. Again, Stanford so design school. So it defined it as a methodology for creative problem solving. We had covered this part in the previous slide. So again, design thinking, they have just used 2-3 words. So they have used it as a creative problem solving approach. So this problem solving for them is again a problem solving method, but for them it is just a creative way to solve that particular problem, and that's how they defined it, that's how they had introduced it, and they have moved on. But if you ask me what my definition is or how I can define it to you people, to everyone who's there, so let me redefine it for you. I will go a step. I'll come out little bit, and then I'll redefine it from a broader level. Okay, so in a simpler terms, I'll say that design thinking is a non-linear, iterative process that teams or organization use to understand the users, end users, challenge assumptions for problem solving, any assumptions that they can challenge, redefines the problem. So sometimes, many times we understand that the way we have defined problem is not correct and we have to redefine it. So that the way we redefine those problems and create innovative solutions and prototype and test. So these are different stages of design thinking. The way we understand the crux of problem, the way we ideate it, the way we create a dummy prototyping of it, how that product or service will look like, and then probably test it with at different level, is a different method. So it encourages the organization or individuals to focus on people they are creating for. So I'll take a pause here, and I want all of you to think how industry was in 1960s or 1980s. At that point of time, the industry was working on product based strategies. So organizations were creating products, and we as a user at that point of time was supposed to fit our needs to those products. The products were not customized, the products were not tailor made for users as per user requirement or as per user need. The products were made the way organizations wanted it to be. So that's how the product centric approach was there in 90s 80s, and then later on it started with little shift when organizations started understanding the user needs, and that's how we land in somewhere around 2010 when the entire concept of customer centric approach came into picture, and that's how this design thinking came very aggressively in market as a approach, as a method. So whenever you sit down to create a solution for any business need, the first question and the foremost question that you should ask, that what's the human need behind it, and that I urge all of you to understand what is the basic content and the basic concept behind this. So I'll take pause for 5 minutes, and I'll request if you have any questions to put it in the chat box, so that we can, in case if you don't have any questions, then possibly we can move ahead, or you can unmute and maybe that, if that works. Okay, so I think we are not getting any questions. So yeah, so let me tell you a little bit more about, let me present my screen first. I'll I'll stay on the same screen. Let me tell you a little bit more about how and why this entire concept came into picture. So some of the history's most glorious product failure have all been around the product itself. I mean, if you can just think that what are those executed products which came into market with I mean, some of the biggest organization of world has launched them, who, and at that point of time there was no dearth of funds, there was no dearth of resources, and still product like Apple Newton or Google Glasses, Sony Betmax, Microsoft has also created something as Zoom, so or Toshiba HD DVD sets. All these failed miserably. I mean, Amazon launched its Fire phone, and it's failed miserably. Samsung launched Galaxy Note 7 and it failed. So the only problem was not in execution, problem was not in strategy, problem was not in the way the entire product was built, but it lays somewhere outside the zone and control of these organizations. Okay, so customers, stakeholders, ecosystem, timing, regulatory authorities, all these things come into picture whenever we try and create any solution. And perhaps the firms were too keenly focusing only on product that they quickly gone out of sync with all these I would say with all these parameters or all these stakeholders on a larger extent. Even in India too, I won't take only global examples. If India too, we can find product with lot of heart and money put in those products, pumped into them, but couldn't excite anyone. I mean, there are products which were launched like anything but failed in our country. So let's understand how what happened with Tata Nano. I think most of you understood now why Tata Nano failed, and there is a very famous case study also on this. Then how Mahindra launched the two-wheeler, then it again failed. Then Maruti Suzuki Kizashi, it launched a vehicle. Then Godrej launched something, portable fridge, I would say compact fridge, and they named it Chotuku. It failed. Okay, Tata, I mean, at the end of the day, Tata was one of the most privileged organization of country, but still Tata Nano failed. Akash tablet was introduced like this is the new age tablet. It will help students to read and to learn things quickly. But again, there was no success in the market. So one must understand as a person, as a faculties, uh, as even as a student, as a business owner or entrepreneurs, one must understand and look uh, the graveyard behind all these failures. And okay, let's deviate a little bit. How Bollywood movies failed. I mean, there are few of the biggest production houses creating something as Ravan, and it failed. There was no lack of innovation. There was no lack of production money. There was no lack of effort, but it failed. So, because at the end, they failed. The organization failed to understand that what we are catering to. At the end, who is our target audience? Who is our consumer? Who is our customer? It's very important for us to understand all these things. And that's how we can say that to solve any problem or to understand anything, there is two sort of let me add a screen here, and I want to okay. So there is always two sort of innovation or two sort of problem solving that can happen. So the very first is, I would say, type A, I'll and then type B. Okay, so type A is something whenever the process is linear, whenever we are into the process of failed innovation, when we say that okay, we are trying something, but we failed in achieving what we opted for. So I would say this is as failed innovation. Okay, and then process B is something that as missed innovation. Let's spend some time to understand what process A is. So failed innovation is something when we try and create or when we try and solve any problem, but unfortunately we fail in solving that particular problem the way we wanted it to be. So the way Google bought Google Lenses, it failed to solve the problem behind it. Or the way Tata Nano was launched, that it's a Takia car and every Indian will have it a four-wheeler in their house. It failed to solve that particular problem because of communication gap. The reason will be anything. I mean, sometimes it might be technological failures, sometimes it might be the other failures, sometimes it might be just as simple as something known as maybe our ecological or regulatory failures, or sometimes it might be just communication failure, as what happened with Tata Nano. So let's that's the basic concept behind failed innovation, which is okay. I mean, no one can guarantee 100% success in any innovation that we do. And second one is missed innovation. So when I say type B or missed innovation, when you miss out on a great opportunity and your competition laps on it. Okay, so so there is a very famous quote by Bill Gates, and he calls out that missing Android was his career's biggest mistake, and that's type B. When you fail to understand the importance, and we have many examples around this. So around this, we can always say one example as Nokia. So Nokia is one example. We can always count second example as Google Lens or Glass. So all these examples, all these uh, innovations were missed innovation. Okay, where organization failed to understand the importance. Canon was at one point of time, Canon was industry leader and all this cinematography equipments and photography, but they failed to understand the digital uh, movement in this entire industry. And let's see where Canon is. There is a very famous case study on how Samsung lost entire plot to OnePlus in India. So again, there is a very renowned uh, and research case study how different organizations fail to understand the importance of their own industry, and that's how a new innovation, new organization comes into picture. 5 years down the line, no one thought that Tesla gonna be one of the leading organization in world. It was, or no one ever thought that GE will miss the bus. So GE is one of those organizations which was in Fortune 500 top list of innovating organization for almost a decade, but it lost now. So GE is losing the way Siemens or all these organizations are coming up. So it all of these are nothing but the examples of missed innovation. So with that, uh, let's move to the next concept of the importance of design thinking. Why we need design thinking, or how it can help us. Why we all are here. Why, I mean, this entire sessions are organized and all those things. So we'll understand this. But before that, let me help you understand what I mean. What was the earlier way of solving problems? So you all of not even if or not all of you, most of you have heard something known as waterfall model. So waterfall model was something where uh, one after another, one after another, one after another, there are different stages, and in each and every stage, it's a linear process. So you complete one stage, then you move to next, then you move to next, and that's how any problem or structure is solved. And that's how we can place uh, the uh, the entire framework in such a way that it can solve any problem, and that's how it had solved. But with with the new techniques, with the new methods, uh, there has been many improvements, and that's how Kishore Biani, who is the CEO of Future Group, he has introduced it that design is focused, the design is user focused, prototype based. I mean, there is a different words that I'll use. Design is user focused, prototype based tool that makes an organization adapt to the fast changing internal and external environment. And that's how building a design led organization requires creativity. It requires different level of attention and deep understanding of users and empathy of human behavior, how we as a human being behave to different situations, how we understand, and how we try and solve any problem and respond to any challenge is a human behavior. And that's how he underlines the importance of design thinking. And that's how we can start the discussion of what it can provide to us. And the very first thing that it can provide to us is understanding the consumer. So let's spend some time on it. So there is a two-way concept which is known as a consumer and a customer. We have to understand that whatever product, service, solution we are creating or we are offering to, who is the end consumer for those, who are the end customers for those solutions, who will experience it, who will pay it, to try and understand the consumer. It's very important for us, or else I would say this is the most important part of any problem solving, that you have to understand what is the end problem and for whom I'm solving it. So these consumer may be anything. It may be the people you are creating for, the customers, the clients, the students, or the users. So in your case, you have to understand that what is actually the requirement of students whom we are catering to. The concept is in a way okay, but in from another angle, what is actually that we are solving for? What is the end requirement of this? Uh, why we need this module, or why we need this particular algorithm to solve that problem? And that's how you can always understand the consumer. And when we'll go to the empathy part of this session, we will try and understand how these uh, understanding can be done, or what are the different tools that we can use to understand all these problems. Uh, and then once we understand the consumer, once we understand what who they are, what they do, their demographic, the tam sam som in marketing language, their behavior, we can create a better fit product or services. We can create a customized, tailored product and services. So right now, most of you have used all these online services like Amazon, or e-commerce services like Amazon, Flipkart. And the moment we see, or the moment we refer any product on all these services, similar sort of uh, I would say a remarketing or retargeting sort of thing is being done on different social media via SEO, via SEM, and that helps brand to understand that what we are looking for. That helps brand to understand and create customer fit, customized product for us. So if I'm looking for something as Nike shoes, it will in each and every platform, from Insta to Facebook to YouTube, it will showcase the advertisement for that particular product. And that's how it has understood the requirement that Utkarsh as a customer has. And that's how that's how it is creating a customer fit product for me. So again, very important point. And design thinking helps us to understand and create a better customer fit product. Then provide relevant solution. So no matter how good your solution is, if it is not providing the relevant outcome to the relevant target group, it is as good as nothing. I mean, so it it won't help anyone in a longer run. In a longer run, it won't help any organization, it won't help any institution. And that's how we can say that we have placed this entire concept of providing relevant solutions. Okay, so on providing relevant solution, I have let's understand this from again IDEO standpoint. Okay, what IDEO did. So somewhere back in 20 uh, 2003 or 2004, I don't remember the year exactly. IDEO started working with different healthcare organizations to provide relevant sitting chairs for patients and for the family members of those patients. Because in hospitals, what generally happen, the the entire focus is on patient itself. No one thinks about the caretaker who are there in the premises. And because and then there is a lot of stress that is always there on caretaker also, because from different angles, maybe they have to rush for uh, different checkups, they have to rush for different medicines and all those things. So the experience for caretaker should also be uh, smooth enough for them to relax a bit and recharge them a bit. And that's how IDEO started its conversation with different leading healthcare providers across the globe, and that's how it established the understanding and established the concept of something known as critical thinking and all those things. So that's how relevant solutions can help, which brings me in the to next point, which is improves experience. So when we do all these 2 3 things, when we understand the consumer and customers, create a better fit product for them, uh, provide them the relevant solution they are looking for, it automatically improves the customer experience. It automatically gives them uh, the the understanding of using that product in much more better way, and in end it provides a better experience altogether. So that's all about experience, and then it gives us an exposure to learn and iterate faster. So let's suppose if you created a product for something for someone who has the he- hearing aid ability, and that product failed. I mean, in terms of failed, it requires iteration. So the moment you launch it, the moment you experience it, the quicker you learn from it, the quicker you can iterate those particular products. And that's how we can start the understanding, we can start the iteration, we can learn the iteration of any particular product, and we can recreate it. So there is a very famous story about how these recreation has helped entire iPhone or entire Apple to launch the iDevices that they call the Mac. So when so there was a time when the Apple was, as an organization, it was not doing that great, and this was an era when Steve Jobs was not part of the organization. And then when he came back, he brought the concept of design thinking to the entire organization, and that's how they started reinventing and redeveloping themselves. So okay, let's understand what Uber did in India, or maybe Uber launched a beta version in somewhere around in May 2010 with its operation in San Francisco, and the service was only restricted to black luxury vehicles. So what happens that they, in the very premium segment of hotel industry, or they have this black mega black luxury cars for pick and drop services. So they started, Uber started with that segment only, but let's spend some time and understand why only luxury cars. So outside all these 5 star or 7 star hotels, one always sees the high end vehicles, and with a T symbol, which means that okay, these are basically the taxis that guests can hire, or that people can, yeah, maybe people can take to for their movements. And are these cars owned by the hotels? No. The answer is no. All these cars were based on out of different agencies as a fleet rental companies. So there were few rental companies at that point of time. There was this Oryx. There was Budget. Budget was one of the rental company in San Francisco. So uh, they hire all these cabs from them. And so the problem statement that Uber saw was that most of times these cars were idle. I mean, no one was using it, no one was hiring it, and they were empty, standing. The chauffeurs or the drivers of those cars were spending their time. So they started to understand that 35% of time in a day these cars are empty and they are just there. So they started onboarding these vehicles. They started taking all these BMWs, Mercedes, and Audis of the world, and started giving it to different people for their drives and their luxury fancy drives to different mobility solution. So that's how it learned, and then it reiterated itself. So, and that brings me to the last point, which is reduce the risk to market. So when we spoke about how did these different products failed, why Tata Nano failed, why Google Lenses failed, or Nokia failed, one of the very prime reason was that they failed to understand the risk to market. They thought that they are the market leaders, and whatever they can launch, whatever they'll provide, the customer will stick to that, and that never happened. So when we use design thinking to its core, when we use its different methods, different stages, it reduces the risk to market. And that's how the entire thing is structured, and that's how this entire concept of uh, design thinking was structured way back. So I'll again take a pause. Let's hear it from you all, what all questions you have, because right now we have reached uh, to an extent where we have something known as raise your hand. So you can ask whatever questions you have, and then possibly we can resume back. uh, okay, I think so. Pritimji, how this will work, is everyone has the access of chat and unmuting themselves? Hello.
Yeah, we have access to everything, but your talk is so lucid that I think people are not finding it easy to ask any questions. They are understanding everything, every bit what you are speaking about.
Might be the reason I'm happy to take this as as the reason for not asking questions.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
I'm sure.
okay. So let me. Uh, there's no screen to present because I have a story to share. Okay, so couple of years back, we as an organization where I was a part of one consulting group, uh, we had we had
Hello.
the
Hello. Hello, sir. Sorry to disturb you from between. This is Chinmay. I'm a MTech student here in Prestige Institute of Engineering Management and Research. Actually, I'm pursuing my work in additive manufacturing, and I also have a keen interest in the topic of design thinking. Um, uh, so, basically, my concern was that how means you said that design thinking is a user-centric approach. So whenever we develop a product, when we talk about from it from an engineering perspective, we only talk about its functionalities and its perspectives. So how can this process be integrated with the engineering processes? Means,
okay. Very good question, Chinmay. I would want to answer this right away, but if so, okay, in a nutshell, I'll answer this. From in engineering, whatever services or whatever product we create, there are different features associated with it. So let's take an example of an application. Let's take it for cred. Okay, Chinmay,
okay.
you there?
Yes, yes, sir.
Yeah, yeah. So let's take it cred as an example. What cred did? Uh, I mean, there was always a gap uh, between a lender as an organization of banks and people who are lending it, the way they pay it. Cred became an aggregator to this entire model. It gives an both of these organization an option to easily get the payable amount from people who have lended it in terms of their EMIs. So if you can see the application of credit, there is nothing fancy that they did. The entire application is so simple. It's just created. Uh, it's just created with an easy flow, and you can understand there is no how to document required to understand that application. But the problem that they solved is a human-centric problem. Am I making sense?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Definitely.
Yeah. So again, we'll take this example when we'll talk about empathy as a first stage. Then I'll take this example and we can talk in detail about how engineering can use design thinking.